Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we're talking about Shostakovich's 13th Symphony, Babi Yar. Probably, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the greatest of his late symphonic works. It is an absolutely extraordinary creation, first of all, because of his response to Yevtushenko's absolutely remarkable poems. Wonderful, wonderful poems. The text is terrific. The progression that he managed to create by selecting them very carefully, and the sheer, raw, emotional power of the music. I mean, if there's a more visceral piece of music out there, I haven't heard it. It's incredible. Just incredible. I mean, think about it. You've got the initial poem, Babi Yar, about the gully in the Ukraine where the Nazis executed Jews as a metaphor, really, for anti-Semitism generally, and a description of anti-Semitism, and by that a universalized version of that is cruelty, man's cruelty to man, and how being a patriotic Russian means that you cannot be an anti-Semite because being virtuous and moral precludes that kind of hatred and gross behavior. I mean, it's just such a morally good piece of music, and there's not a lot of stuff about which you can say that, really, but it is. And then the next movement, humor. I mean, wonderful, sarcastic attempt of authoritarian regimes to throttle humor, because of course humor is one of the great defenses against the pomposity and chest thumping arrogance of autocratic regimes. Then we've got it in the store, a desperately moving tribute to Russian women who have endured untold suffering in the effort to provide for their families, and who bear the weight of civilization on their shoulders. And then finally, the last three poems run together thematically. Fears is all about how people are, its fears are dying in Russia, but it's ironic because it doesn't necessarily mean that fears are dying in Russia. It's claustrophobic. It's about being afraid of your neighbor, of your family, of your wife, of being ratted on. It's horrible. And then finally, the fog clears, the miasma of fear, and we have a career, a wonderfully sardonic but at the same time hauntingly moving lullaby. Really, is what it is for the most part, about Galileo, and about how he followed his career by not being a careerist. In other words, by not standing on the shoulders of others and watching them drown while you relentlessly claw your way up the pole of acclaim by selling out. I mean, and it's he says, I follow my career by not following it, by not being a careerist. It's just an incredible piece. And what's so marvelous about it is that it contains one of the most haunting and powerful thematic transformations in all of Shostakovich, because the very beginning of In the Store, the third movement, begins with the double basses grinding out this watery sort of ya da 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 da, just a simple, wavery, not even a melody really, and that becomes the lullaby in a career, sung out by the two flutes. It's exactly the same theme. It's just sped up and reharmonized a bit, and voila! Everything's all connected. And, the Babi Yar tune with the fateful tolling of a bell returns, and all the various movements, and it's just incredible, and so moving, so incredibly moving. I mean, it's hard to hear the end of it without shedding a tear, and I mean that seriously. It really grabs you. It's an incredible, powerful, brave masterpiece because, of course, Shostakovich wrote it. It was immediately banned. And then he was forced to make changes to or Yevtushenko was forced to make changes to the poems to make it less about anti-Semitism in Soviet society. But nowadays, people perform the original version. It's amazing. And it's been recorded quite well many times. It's one of those works where people basically don't do it unless they're really ready to do it. It's not a piece that permits any kind of shallowness or superficiality. It's just gripping and dark and thrilling and consoling and biting and sardonic, and it's wonderful. Anyway, greatest recordings of all time. That's what we're talking about, right? Rudolf Barshai with the WDR Symphony Orchestra and Chorus and those people. Let me see if I can find out who else is involved here. Wait a minute, because it's in this box, the Shostakovich cycle. And it's very funny. When the Shostakovich cycle came out, the Barshai, everybody was raving about it because it's fabulous. It has no weak performances whatsoever. It's magnificently well played, wonderfully recorded. And then everybody kind of forgot about it. And I'm not quite sure why. I mean, because there's so many other Shostakovich cycles. They just seem to be a dime a dozen for a few decades there. And one came out, then another came out, then another came out, and then, too much to digest. But this is as good as any. And Barshai, of course, has a provenance, which goes right back to the composer. It's with the Choral Academy of Moscow. So you've got a genuine Russian male choir. And Sergei, Aleksashkin, bass, sings quite well. But I remember, and I've said this before about this performance because I've mentioned it before, my good friend Christophe Huss, who is the music critic at Le Devoir, in Montreal, I played this for him because I got it before he did. And he was visiting New York for some musical event or something. And I put this on. I said, listen to this. And I put on the beginning of Babi Yar. It's with the bell going dong and the muted brass with you just have this wonderful raspy quality, and he doesn't make them too quiet. They have bite even at a lower dynamic level, and that prowling bassoons and basses plodding along like that. And he just looked at me and he said, "That is death," and it is. It's phenomenal, and the whole performance goes that way. It's just incredibly gripping, well sung, wonderfully recorded, and it's likely to be passed over or missed because I don't know if you can get it separately, but it's in the box with all the symphonies. And I have various performances of the symphony that I particularly love. One of them being Haitink's on Decca, which is also a shockingly fabulous performance, equally gripping in its way and wonderfully well recorded. And there are some others. Riccardo Muti's new one, which is really, really fine. I mean, people get this symphony probably because it's just so honest and it's so direct and it's so clear what it's trying to express and how it does it. It really is. But if you want that something extra, that extra element of conviction or depth of interpretation or awareness of what's at stake, the desperation behind the music, this is the performance to hear. It's really something special. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.